Okay, we're looking at an extremely familiar artifact, right? Which is a sports biopic, which surprisingly features loss and redemption, good brother and bad, and actors eager to show off their worked out bodies, which I think is the secret to why all these boxing movies actually get made. And we're looking at some very familiar tropes, like the image of the running fighter in training, set against a landscape that's understood to explain how he got to be so tough, right? Because he exemplifies the virtues of the place he's from, the city that he runs through. I want to show you that we're also looking at another example of a cultural form positioned to exploit the post-industrial moment. The movie takes advantage of this moment as a set of business conditions in which to turn a profit, and it also exploits the moment's artistic possibilities by drawing upon a currently available set of stylistic moves to tell a story people want to hear, a story that at least implicitly addresses the consequences of post-industrial transformation. Within the recent boom in Massachusetts-made Hollywood movies, The Fighter is part of a subset. You can think of it as the film tax credit renaissance that makes an effort to achieve a significant local feel. So I'm not talking about a movie like Paul Blart Mall Cop, right, which was shot in the suburbs of Boston, but doesn't make any effort to establish any kind of local identity. I'm talking about Mystic River, The Departed, Gone Baby Gone, Edge of Darkness, Shutter Island, The Town, and next up in line, The Fighter. These films, a sequence that goes back to Good Will Hunting, appear to form an exception to the general rule that Hollywood has tended to remove specialized regional American content from its movies as it's sold more and more to a world audience. So the usual argument holds that as the American movie industry grows increasingly intertwined with other national film industries and relies more on that global audience, it has increasingly made movies rich in special effects with widely accessible plots and social and historical contexts that don't require any special American local knowledge that you wouldn't expect of, for instance, the typical TV watcher in Malaysia. An emblematic Hollywood city movie of our time would be a Spider-Man or a Batman sequel, right, which would expect to make about 2/3 of its profit overseas. To make sense of such a movie's urban setting and appreciate it, you don't really need to know anything about American city life that you can't learn from other movies or TV shows or music videos. That's why the Boston area movies, and they're mostly Boston area, that devote a considerable part of their energy to establishing an authentic feeling, local quality, would seem to be a wrinkle in this process of de-Americanizing the content of Hollywood product. So what forces formed the wrinkle, and what useful meanings can we read out of its contours, useful to us in this room? Right? So start with the enabling material conditions. As New York City did in the late 1960s and 70s, when it became apparent to the Lindsay administration that something would have to replace the city's rapidly eroding manufacturing sector, Massachusetts has wooed film and TV production as part of its commitment to cultural economic development. In the past few years, the state has boasted the most attractive film tax credit program in the nation, and it claims almost $500 million in direct spending by film productions in 2008 alone, which was its good year. There are big new studio spaces in the works, and it's easier now to do location work and get ancillary services. Policy moves to ease the way of film production are a classic post-industrial economic development strategy. The decline of manufacturing opens up a gap that can be filled in part by new industries, including the production of culture, as the New England's mill city becomes a backwater in the industrial economy and acquires a new role in the post-industrial economy. Post-industrial transformation 101 dictates that if you don't make things anymore, you provide images, feelings, history, services, information, and experiences, and you repurpose physical elements and the history of the formerly industrial city to max out the consumer impact of the arts and culture dollar. These films exploit possibilities opened up by this set of material and cultural conditions, some of the basic qualities that make a post-industrial city what it is. Again, this is a hook for the resale situation. The production and resale of culture can't fully replace manufacturing, but the culture business can create some jobs while helping to reposition cities as freshly significant central places. Lowell, where The Fighter is set, with its repurposed textile mills, has become a regional poster child for this kind of transformation. Even though Lowell's remaking is a work in progress, the process of grafting an interesting city onto a tough town, or maybe extracting an interesting city out of a tough town, right, has gone far enough that the transition itself has become a leading feature of the city's identity. But the film tax credit, as an example of post-industrial policy, explains only why a lot of movies get made in Massachusetts. We still have to fully engage what it means that some of these movies, like The Fighter, try so hard to establish a local feel. You can hear the dialogue coaching in these scenes, right? In everything from that obsessive dialogue coaching to parsing the micro nuances of local class fractions in Dorchester in Gone Baby Gone, these movies ostentatiously seek to bear the mark of the place in which they were made. Casting calls for The Fighter specified boxers and trainers, women with red hair, and residents of Lowell, right? At least the aura of the real thing matters here. Why? Began on a general level with the fresh attraction of the local in a self-consciously globalizing age. Here I'm not just talking about indigenizing global fare, but more broadly the appeal of any local texture at all. As time and space are measured in America, and especially in Hollywood, Boston and Lowell and Providence and the other cities in New England are strange, ancient places, right, with distinctive physical forms, exotic folkways, and curious languages, like Jerusalem or the cities of the Silk Road. Right? A movie can cite signs of locality, the qualities that are understood to make Boston Boston or Lowell Lowell, to give itself an air of authenticity, which is a move that remade foreign material translocated to Massachusetts often makes in the most obvious ways. So, for example, Fever Pitch reduces Bostonness to being a Red Sox fan. And The Departed tries to do the same thing with opening footage of protests against school busing in the 1970s. Mystic River and Gone Baby Gone, which are both adaptations of homegrown Dennis Lehane novels, dig a little deeper in search of the quality of locality. But they also share the habit of trying to capture the quality of locality with an emblematic shot or line. There's a priceless throwaway moment in Gone Baby Gone when a little boy on a bike cuts in front of a car, and for no reason at all, since he was completely in the wrong, and the driver didn't even honk at him, the kid yells back an extremely unchivalrous remark about the driver's mother. Right? It's a moment of pure Boston-style unpleasantness. Bad traffic skills, bad manners, nastiness to outsiders, refusal to pronounce the R in mother. Works. And it's exactly like a shot of a yak herder or a snake charmer in a movie set in Mongolia or India. Right? A moment that's there for the pleasure and the citational purpose of tasting locality. One often remarked upon side effect of globalization is valorizing the local, especially the irreducible, romantically unreconstructed local. Right? Hence, fuck your mother. Right? Which is what he says. But I think it's possible to be more specific about the attractions of the local as it shows up in New England cities in movies like The Fighter. These movies tend to focus on a particular layer of locality, the remnants and the byblows of the distinctive ways of living that grew up in industrial cities. The particular form of industrial urbanism that was undone by deindustrialization and suburbanization and the change in American immigration patterns that decentered Western and Southern Europe and recentered on Asia and Latin America, the Caribbean, and Eastern Europe. These are for the most part movies about white ethnics, usually Irish, sometimes Italian, descended from the old new immigrants, right, who fashioned their urban folkways around a familiar neighborhood landscape of factory, saloon, parish church, school, union hall, boxing gym, and the like. The landscape of what's called the urban village. In movie after movie, the camera lingers on the remnants of this landscape, soaring in over the tightly packed roofs of the old neighborhood, or unsteadily tracking the heroes from dive bar to parish church, right? Elegizing the urban order that rose and fell between the late 19th century and the late 20th. These movies are besotted with old school, with an old school masculinity native to such places, or that these movies imagine is still native to such places. They're also often violent crime stories, in which the surface crime may be a murder or a disappearance or a robbery or a rape. But the sense of deep crime, the profound condition uncovered by the investigation of the surface crime, is wrapped up with the decline and fall of the old neighborhood and the world in which it was embedded. In addition to whatever else they're about, these movies want to think about what has been lost, gained, and salvaged in the long, slow aging out of industrial urbanism. For both material and symbolic reasons, the urban landscapes and culture of Massachusetts, represented by the triple-decker block, or the red brick factory building, or the phantom letter R, have become common tools with which to do that kind of thinking. And that's true both for homegrown artists like the Afflecks and Mark Wahlberg and Matt Damon, and for storytellers from elsewhere like Clint Eastwood and Mel Gibson and Martin Scorsese, who seek to refresh their myth-making powers by converging on Massachusetts, of all places, right? And on the qualities that are presumed to make Boston, Boston, or Lowell, Lowell. So American movies in general get less American as they get more global. But at the same time, this particular subset of American movies fall all over themselves to capture one very specific receding kind of local Americanness. It's a natural contradiction. Globalization inspires a revaluing of localism. And it's all made more urgent by the sense that this particular localism in question might be disappearing into the realm of nostalgia for a lost golden age. You can see these movies almost as museum exhibits, right? Attempts to preserve and display something precious, which helps explain why it's important to some people to make and see such movies, which as a group earn a greater proportion of their profits domestically than is now typical for a Hollywood movie. The Fighter will fit right into the thematic norms of the Massachusetts tax credit film renaissance. The tax credit provides a screen that shelters the cultural style in question, the Massachusetts-made movies that go for a local feel, from the bottom line in its most annihilating form. The tax credit helps create a wrinkle in the cultural landscape, and in that wrinkle, cultivated by institutions such as the State Film Office and movie studios, enough creative possibility gathers that something can grow, a distinctive style, a genre. Hollywood doesn't need the kind of protection for its product that serving as a hook for the resale of Massachusetts-ness affords. But Hollywood will, of course, gladly take that protection and will gladly go wherever it needs to go to take advantage of that protection. The result of the industries coming to Massachusetts is that a lot of inchoate inspirations and ideas, including a nostalgic fixation on industrial urbanism, can find their way into tangible form as Massachusetts-made movies with a strong local feel. Okay, there are a lot of other examples I could offer of cultural forms that have found in the post-industrial moment an opening to function as a hook for the resale. I won't do Waterfire, but Waterfire is an excellent example, right? One paragraph. Waterfire, which is Barnaby Evans' recurring nocturnal art installation on the rivers of Providence that features bonfires and music, is a very successful example, right? Anybody who sells food or drink or lodging in Providence can tell you that as a hook for the resale, Waterfire has done pretty well. And the screen partially sheltering Waterfire from the bottom line should really be considered part of the performance, part of the art, right? That screen has been assembled out of both private and public parts, including the policy decisions and the outlay of local and federal resources that went into uncovering the river, and the wooing of a diverse group of corporate sponsors and small businesses that made common cause with Barnaby Evans and his crew. Waterfire has been around for 13 years, and it's had something like 10 million visitors. As an ongoing artistic enterprise, it exploits the opportunities the post-industrial city offers to both do business and make art.